Hello, and welcome to Wine and Reason, the Heartbeat Edition, which is a bit of a misnomer. So, recently, my state legislature last Thursday night passed House Bill 2263, which is a severe ban on abortion. And you can find the sources for this in the description. Um, it basically says that once a woman is detectably pregnant, she can't get an abortion. So that's as early as 5.5 weeks. So just a just as a visual aid, I really wish I had one of those like 6 week embryo replicas for you, but I don't. And also, I don't recommend Googling images for that because you get really disgusting, gross images. Anyway, but it's roughly the size of the eraser on this number two pencil. That's how big the embryo is at 5.5 to 6 weeks. Also, it doesn't have a heartbeat. It has twitching cells that create an electrical pulse. And when we hear the word pulse, we think heartbeat, but it doesn't have a heart yet. It hasn't had time to develop one. And again, it's this big roughly. So it can't survive outside the womb at all, under no circumstances. In fact, many women will miscarry at 5 to 6 weeks with never knowing they'd been pregnant. That happens a lot, and they don't even know they don't even know they were pregnant. They just know, oh wow, I'm like a little late. Oh, okay, here we go. That's it. So this bill, again, and they were very sneaky the way that they did this. They So the legislation would ban abortions after a heartbeat can be detected, which is as early as 5.5 weeks into a pregnancy. Now, again, I want to say that is slightly incorrect. It is not an actual heartbeat, and the what I just read there comes um, from Tyler Arnold at the Center Square. But again, lots of people think of it as a heartbeat, so I'm not gonna, you know, bash Tyler Arnold too hard on that. Um, but I wish they didn't. I wish people knew more about their own biology and about human biology, because this is ridiculous. And calling these bans heartbeat bills is absolutely an appeal to pathos, right? It's an appeal to emotion to get people to think that something this big is a baby. It's not a baby yet. It's barely past the stage of being a zygote. Okay. All right. So other similar bills in other states have been struck down. We know that this happened with the Alabama bill, I think, and the bill in Georgia, I want to say, have already been struck down. But knowing about this, the way that the Tennessee bill works is it's got what they're calling a laddered approach. Okay. So, well, I'll just read this bit. So, Tennessee's legislation takes a laddered approach that would incrementally push back the point during the pregnancy in which the ban goes into effect if the court finds the early ban unconstitutional. So that way, it's meant to encourage judges to reevaluate current case law on the scientific advances made since Roe v. Wade and potentially overrule precedent. So that is all from that article. And that is incredibly disturbing. The other disturbing part here is the way this bill was passed. And I mean physically the way it was passed. During a closed session, because the court is closed to all unofficial personnel because of COVID-19 last Thursday, they passed this bill around 12:30 a.m. Friday morning. So on Juneteenth, on the anniversary of the last American slaves being told that they were free, their they passed this bill, which just sort of adds insult to injury, certainly to women of color in this country and to all women in this country. It is, I'm very furious and I'm trying to contain it so that I can get through the important information here. All right. So, according to, let's see, I'm going to read you this is from Tennessee legislators passed controversial fetal heartbeat bill. This is from WMTV, NBC15.com. And the byline is staff. So just some poor person on the staff had to write this up. Now, this bill, to be very clear, this bill is not law yet. Governor Bill Lee has not signed it into law, although when he was here in Memphis on Friday, he did tweet out that, quote, one of the most important things we can do to be pro-family is to protect the rights of the most vulnerable in our state, and there is no more vulnerable than the unborn. But he wouldn't publicly comment on the bill itself. And that was in Memphis on Friday. And it's probably just as well that I didn't know he was here last Friday because I might have thrown eggs at him and then I would be in jail. Okay, so I'm not saying you should throw eggs at the governor, by the way. I just think it's kind of funny. It's a funny thought experiment. Like, oh, you're so concerned with the unborn. Here's an unborn chicken. I just like that idea. I'm not saying you should do that. Yeah. Okay. Don't throw eggs at the governor. All right. Now, one of our sensible senators, Senator Ramesh Akbari, Democrat, said, quote, bottom line, this legislation is unconstitutional. States like Mississippi, Iowa, and Kentucky have tried, but courts have found it unconstitutional. Okay, there's my correction. Earlier I said Georgia and Alabama, but Mississippi, Iowa, and Kentucky definitely have tried and to do these abortion bans. And yeah, they've been ruled unconstitutional because they are. They go against precedent and they violate right to privacy. Another horrible part about this bill is it would also require a woman to get an ultrasound before having the procedure done. And if you're looking at getting an ultrasound before 5.5 to 6 weeks of pregnancy, or even at that point, they have to do an internal ultrasound. So there's basically this rather large wand-like object that they insert into your vagina and up past your cervix, which I can only imagine is incredibly uncomfortable. And they do the ultrasound that way. Ugh. Okay, so another thing about this bill is it makes no provision, no exceptions for rape or incest. So if you are a rape or incest victim and you fall pregnant because of that, to add insult and more trauma to trauma and injury, oh, I said the R word. This is going to get suppressed. Oh, well. Then they're going to also put this large wand thing. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? I really think at this point, I'm just starting to wonder if we're just walking wombs and political talking points, and that's it. And by we, I mean people with uteruses. Okay, so to go back to the article here, to quote the the Republican side. Sorry, I lost my place for a second. All right, Republican Senator Brian Kelsey, who of course lives in Germantown, voted yes. He calls the life of the unborn precious and said, quote, the legislature has discussed the bill for 2 years, and I'm glad we were able to reach a solution. Okay, Senator Kelsey, we didn't reach a solution. You got your misogynistic, horrific, trauma-causing bill passed that would only allow women in Tennessee, and I've mentioned before on previous videos that our Planned Parenthood and Choices of Memphis are the only place that, I mean, we've had people come from as far away as Texas to get care there. And also, just so you know, abortions are roughly 3% of what Planned Parenthood does. Everything else that they do prenatal care, they do well woman exams, they do STD testing for men and women. It's all cheap and affordable, and it's Planned Parenthood is the reason I never had to make this choice when I was a young woman and had no insurance. I could go there, I could get well woman exams, and I could get very inexpensive birth control. And it's not just for women or people with uteruses either. If you're a man and or you are a person with other equipment, you can get condoms there, and you can get really cheap STD testing or STI testing, which is very important. My county actually had an outbreak of syphilis once, for goodness sake. Like, oh God. Anyway. All right. So yeah, so it wasn't a solution, Senator Kelsey. What you did was wait until a closed session in the middle of the night to pass an abhorrent bill. And some people, some Democrats have wondered if, because they passed the state budget right before they passed right before they passed House Bill 2263. And there are some Democrats who said that they used the budget as a bargaining chip in that situation. One last quote from the second article is from a political analyst. Quote, clearly those who voted for the bill know it's going to end up before the court, which is ultimately going to say, is this bill constitutional? And by the quote, end quote, and by the court, they mean the Supreme Court. That's analyst Michael Nelson. He also said, but the only way to get it before the Supreme Court is to actually pass the bill. So Governor Lee would need to sign this into law or need to wait until I think he can, if he waits a certain amount of time without vetoing it, it becomes state law anyway, which I think would be a very cowardly act. He should veto it. And Governor Lee, I'm sure you're not listening, but if you are, you need to veto this bill. This is only going to hurt women. Women are going to die because of this bill. People with uteruses are going to die because if we've been here, we know where this road leads. It leads to an entire wing of young women dying from infections from illegal abortions. So, all right. So last thing, in the Tennessean characterizes this bill. I'm sorry. There's some good news. Sorry. So, quote, Tennessee abortion providers have asked a judge for a temporary restraining order that would stop the state from implementing strict new abortion restrictions recently passed by the legislature, meaning this bill. The bill, part of Lee's legislative agenda that was largely abandoned earlier this spring amid the coronavirus pandemic, found new life through last-minute budget negotiations between the House and Senate on Thursday. It passed 23-5 just after 12:30 a.m. last Friday on a party line vote. And Governor Lee has not signed the bill. Oh, sorry, quote. And Governor Lee has not signed the bill, but we expect he will. But later that day, later Friday on Juneteenth, Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, and other abortion rights groups filed a lawsuit against the bill in federal court in Nashville. And that's going to be heard by U.S. District Judge William L. Campbell Jr. So again, William L. Campbell Jr., sir, Your Honor, I strongly urge you to take precedent and also to take the cost to women's lives, uh, especially women in high risk health situations. Frankly, like me, I mean, I'm 42. If I get pregnant now, it's automatically a high risk pregnancy just because of my age. Another problem is that the mental health medication that I take so that I can function in society can cause birth defects. So if I get pregnant under this new law, I'd have to go off of my meds for at least a year. And I don't know that I would survive that. I really don't. I've been suicidal before. I don't ever want to be suicidal again. My meds work very well for me, but I can't take them if I'm pregnant and have any hope of giving birth to a healthy infant. And I don't want children anyway. So why? How dare you? Why would you do this to me? And to all the other women in Tennessee, why would you do this to us? We've got one of the highest rates of teen pregnancy in the country because we won't teach comprehensive sex education. We teach only abstinence sex ed. Pet your dog, not your date. That's the extent of our sex ed in the public school system in Tennessee. And you know what? Teenagers are going to fuck anyway. And this is the only place where they can get condoms and where really cheap, and birth control really cheap, and where they can get tested. I'm no, they don't give out dogs, sadly. No, we're too good for dogs. Um, yeah, it's beyond stupid, and it's beyond infuriating. And what I really hate about this is that the Republican Party has taken the pro-life position, and they're not pro-life; they're pro-birth. They don't give a shit about you once you're born. They want to. They keep cutting back WIC and other oh my gosh, I forgot the acronym. Oh, and SNAPs benefits, and they're constantly wanting to cut back on unemployment benefits, all kinds of social welfare. They don't want us to have a social safety net. And they forget that when they do that, hey Maya, they forget that when they do that, they're hurting innocent children. You know, the ones that they claim to care so much about, but they want you to have a baby even if you can't afford to feed and house it properly. And how dare they? If I don't have control over my own anatomy, I'm not free. I'm not. I'm a slave to my biology at that point. And I'm not equating that with actual slavery. I'm not saying that's the same, but that's what it becomes. And that's why women used to have such a higher death rate than men, was before we had good birth control, good reliable birth control. Most women died young because of childbirth or uh, comorbid conditions associated with childbirth. Yeah, that's really all I've got. I find this very depressing. The only silver lining here is that Planned Parenthood and the ACLU and other um, reproductive rights advocates groups are already on this. They're already taking it to the law, and they're fighting the good fight. So if you can, I know times are really hard right now, but if you can, please support Planned Parenthood. Please stand with Planned Parenthood and support the ACLU. Other than that, thanks all of you for being here and for listening. Hope this didn't bum you out too much. Um, yeah, actually, brain bug. This is a good point. I'm gonna put this up really quickly. There we go. Forcing you to provide life support for a non-autonomous entity is slavery. Thank you. It kind of is, because that's basically what it is. I actually tweeted at Governor Lee. I was very angry, and I tweeted at him. Am I just a walking womb to you? Because it feels that way. It really does. It feels like they don't care. They don't care about women who are already here. They only care about the ones that might be born, maybe. How backwards is that? We cannot properly feed, clothe, and house all of the children that already exist in this country. Just look at the foster care system. And yet they want to what? Solve that problem by having more? That's not how it works. And oop, whoops. Hey Joan, thank you. Uh, yeah, it does. Thank you, Joan. And yes, please, everybody, raise your voices on this issue, please. And not to take away from Black Lives Matter. And yeah, we are. That's still happening. We're still trying to see change. We're still trying to put an end to systemic racism. So yes, that's important. Let's keep that up. And always, civil rights and women's rights have always gone hand in hand historically in this country. So let's keep doing it. All right. Let's all stand up for each other. All right. Okay. Love from Memphis, y'all.